Hello everyone, and welcome to the Ubuntu Touch Q&A, the UBports Foundation's show discussing the development of Ubuntu Touch and our community's questions. This is episode 86, streamed live on October 10th, 2020. My name is Dalton, and joining me this week are Jan.
Hello.
Florian.
Hello.
And Alfred.
Hello.
I mixed up your ordering this week. I was wondering if you'd catch it.
Yes, it surprised me.
We have a huge roundup of news about Ubuntu Touch and news from our community and questions from our community taken from our forum. As always, we'll also be taking some questions from live chat, so keep them coming, everyone. Hopefully we can get to yours today. If you're interested in anything we're talking about during the show, maybe you'd like to get Ubuntu Touch on your device, you can head over to devices.ubuntu-touch.io to see if yours is supported and get the UBports installer, get Ubuntu Touch on your device, see what we're talking about. Florian, let's start off this week talking about some newer devices on that, actually some of the older devices on that list, now that I think about
Exactly. It was the older devices. So yeah, some people already have asked, because we announced a few already months ago, I would say, that we started working on bringing core devices to Halium 7.1, which should bring a lot of benefits, especially for OnePlus One and Nexus 5. But also the Fairphone 2 is on this list. So I want to just give a brief overview about that. All three ports...
To back up just a moment, this is all of the devices that you mentioned, the Fairphone 2, the Nexus 5, and the OnePlus One, are currently using an Android compatibility layer based on their Android 5.1 builds. Well, lineage 12.1. And Halium 7.1 is based on Android 7.1 or lineage 14. So it gets all those hardware fixes that may have happened between Android 5 and Android 7, and some other just benefits that the community have been making in general on Halium 7.1.
Exactly. And that, for example, means that on the OnePlus One, the camera is finally able to use the autofocus, the zoom, and the flash in the right way. That has been fixed. I confirmed this already here. It's working really nicely. All three ports are kind of progressing. We have bootable images for all three devices. They are partially not published now. Partially the ones that are published are older. I expect we need a few more days, weeks to finally be able to give this out to people who want to test it. And on top of that, we are discussing how we can migrate it. So we hope that when there are no big regressions, that we can just make it in one OTA cycle, maybe one device per cycle, so that you just get into the devil channel.
You never know what happened. You never know what happened. Your device just reboots.
Suddenly you have a 7.1 image and everything seems magically working. I don't know. Maybe it's not going to be that easy, but let's see. So we will announce in the forum, there is the devices section, the porting section, and there is a devices subforum. And we're going to invite the testers there. So if you're interested in testing this with one of your devices, or maybe even with your daily driver, which I won't recommend, of course, there should be instructions there soon how to test core devices in Halium 7.1. Okay, the next thing is that the German developer community has again scrambled together for making a hackathon. It's a very important topic for probably all of us. They want to work on the card DAF support. So we all know that synchronization of calendar and contacts is one of the primary features of a phone. Calendar is quite working already with CalDAV, but for card DAF, for the contact and address book synchronization, there is just a very hacky way. They want to fix that in a hackathon in November. It should be around 13th to 15th of November. It's going to happen in Fulda. The space is limited, so if you want to go there, you just cannot pop up first. You should ask if there are still seats left due to Corona situation and all of these things. There is actually a German developer group, or you just ask around in one of the main groups. You will find someone who is connected to those guys and can forward you. But if anybody's interested, particularly, of course, people from Germany, to help out there with CardDAV, yes, please feel invited. They would be glad to see you around.
Cool. That's actually, we had a question about card dev from Pavoke later. He said, accounts has been semi-broken for a long time now. As of OTA 13, it doesn't even trigger the OSK when trying to input, for example, Nextcloud credentials. Yet non-Google contacts and calendar syncing are such a vital part of using a smartphone.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we're going to get more work on that. For this keyboard thing, have you filed a bug yet, Pavoke? I have not heard of this happening on anyone's device yet. So that'd be something that we really want to investigate.
Hopefully you won't have to file it because it will be fixed by the time he gets to file it by the hackathon. Very cool that the community is working on it. It's great to see. Up next, I hope all of you got your UBports installer 420 jokes out of your system last week, because we pushed another release that is UBports installer 0.5.2-beta. And it includes a bunch of additional stuff that's going to be very useful. So just going through the list quickly, because I don't want to keep the show up for half an hour. So it includes Heimdall support, which allows us to flash Samsung devices, which wasn't possible before. So they use a different system for accessing the bootloader. It includes ADB sideload support for installing other operating systems and other types of images. This is going to be useful for the Volaphone, for example. You might have heard about it. Volaphone is a collaboration project we have going on right now, and it has Android, Sailfish OS, and Ubuntu Touch as operating system choices from day one and or day zero, depending on your philosophical outlook. And it's going. We are working on having all of these operating systems included in the UBports installer, and the UBports installer as the official recommended way for switching between them from the time it ships. It should ship very soon, I think, within the next 2-3 months. So it's going to be a little pressure on us, but we are working hard to make it work. Also included are a couple bug fixes, minor improvements such as proxy support. Up until now, you could use the installer behind a proxy, which was kind of annoying for our Chinese users. And a little more flexibility, so you can now download archive files and unpack those. So you have smaller downloads, faster downloads, and better reusability, stuff like this. Also, we have a new supported device. Thank you, Florian, for this. It's the Nexus 6P. And it now works with the installer. I think there's still some bumpy things there, but
yeah.
We're gonna work on ironing out the kinks there, I think, over the next time. So devices are actually not linked statically in the installer releases. So there's an API where we can change it independently from the releases, but we need to make the all the changes, the specific features the device needs for the installer to talk to the device in the release. So all of that is now there, and now we're just gonna polish it a little more, and that can happen independently. Also, in the last release, we introduced a new bug, which was an accident. So the Windows install would just fail silently in the very, very last step, and that's why it wasn't caught before in the testing. The device just wouldn't reboot. But lucky for you, we fixed this in the next release, which is going to be 0.5.4-beta, and that's already lined up for testing. So if you want to help us testing, there's a post on the forum in the UBports installer category under other topics. You can find this. Also included in that is the bug fix for this, obviously. We also upgraded to Electron 10. Previously, we were on version 5, which was kind of difficult for packaging for newer distributions, because version 5 was ancient, and we're not going to mention that at the beginning of this year, we were still on version 2. So this is very good that we are now in the 21st century here. Also, general code cleanup, some modularization. That's a difficult word. And we also have experimental builds for other architectures in here. So we have been toying around with the idea to have kind of a terminal-based on a Raspberry Pi or something where you can just go and plug in your device and it will install it with the UBports installer. And for this, we need ARM builds, obviously, of the installer. This
That'll
would not
also
work.
help running the installer on the Pinebook Pro.
Yes, exactly, because ARM is the future, or definitely x86 isn't the future. Maybe not ARM, but
Wow,
we
spicy.
we are going to move forward with this. We also tweaked our CI and built stuff a little here. So we actually moved to GitHub Actions, and I have to grudgingly admit that it's really nice. I'm more of a GitLab man actually, but GitHub Actions is really, really nice, has some really nice features. So credit where credit is due. And an exciting new feature in this release is experimental automatic reports to our new user testing platform, OpenCuts.
But Jan, what is OpenCuts?
OpenCuts? I'm so glad you asked. So yes, this is another thing we have been working on for a while. It's a platform where people can help us with user testing. So until now, I think we talked about this in a Q&A a while back already. But before, user testing was always a little chaotic. It was mostly based on people just running into bugs and reporting them. We have been doing some formalized user testing where we mailed spreadsheets back and forth, but it was never very organized. So this platform will change this. You can head over to ubports.open-cuts.org to see this in action. Dalton, can we show this on screen?
What?
I messed up the order. I'm sorry.
Oh, yes, you did.
Okay, exactly. So more about this later. Just some more installer stuff before we continue talking about OpenCuts.
Okay.
Because I want to talk to you about some of the future stuff we have planned, because we're not stopping here. So there's currently in the works a UI rework, because the current state of the UI is really old. So it's actually the messiest and oldest part of the installer right now. Someone's working on a proposal to move this to Svelte. Let's see. I think this could be exciting, but we'll see what we are going with. But we can also use some help there. We're also working on continuing to break the installer up into more modules that are better tested and organized and reusable. So the installer is an Electron app. Yes, and other people can use it if we publish reusable modules of it, and that's helpful. Also, we have some unfinished work to allow backups in the installer, which I think many people are looking forward to. We hope to be able to finish this very soon. And to improve the config files. If you want to get involved with this, there's a forum section about the installer and also a Telegram group. We just don't have a link for this yet. So if you want to join on Telegram, just message me, I guess, at Neo the Third on Telegram, and then I'll hook you up. Or just ask in any of the groups and you will find it. All right, continuing to talk about...
So that was a lot of stuff. I really love to see the installer getting more improvements. We had a lot of people testing this time around, I thought. We got some testing on the Mac build, which is actually a little rare for us. So it's good to see people are really excited about this. I'm excited about it because it makes it so much easier for people to install Ubuntu Touch. So huge thanks for coming back and helping us out with all this. All right. So now you want to talk a little bit about your OpenCuts system here?
Exactly. So the idea there is to... Oh, you made it work. Nice. Oh, no. Okay, this is live. So the idea is to... Okay. The idea is to have a bunch of systems that we are working on defined here. Currently, there's just Ubuntu Touch and the UBports installer. But if you now click on test something... You didn't click on test something? Okay. Then you can select, for example, select the UBports installer. Up next, you can select a release. So developers can either create these releases manually or have them pulled in automatically from wherever those software projects are published. So this can be GitHub, GitLab, the Open Store, or the Ubuntu Touch system image server, and OpenCuts will pull those in automatically with the release dates you can see here. So now you can see there's still some stuff uncovered here from those progress bars. So you can see for every release how much was, how many tests passed, how many were reported with which result. The wonky one is the medium result kind of, and then how much is still inconclusive. So where does this inconclusive come from? Can you scroll down a little? Exactly. Okay. So here you can see you can select your environment. So this would be Windows, Linux, and macOS. If you click on this environment on the dropdown there.
Oh, it doesn't show because X.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. So you have to imagine that this would show. This was a web app, by the way. So in general, it will show. Okay. This is just StreamYard being a little weird here. But in general, you should be able to select something here. Okay, that would actually be an invalid combination, but if you select Windows and exe, that would just work just fine. Okay, so you can comment there. You can also upload log files and so on. Let's skip over this.
No.
If you just select the result node on. Yeah, let's say it passed, so it doesn't mess up my actual results. I have to remember to delete this after. Click on view run.
Yay.
Then you can see your results. So if you would have added a log here, we would also see the log. But just for demonstration, no, you're not logged in, so it doesn't matter. But now click on the release in the top bar where you see 0.5.4-beta.
Whoa,
yes.
Graphs.
So here we can see the results organized a little more. So you can see how did the result distribution change from the last one. Yeah, click on the where it says critical here. Okay, scroll a little down. So here you can see all the valid combinations that exist in the installer. So you can see how did the results in the Windows exe package change? How did the result in any of the other combinations change from the last release to this one? So it helps us to identify what's going on. So the installer is kind of the demoing ground for this. So we can start learning a little more what works, what doesn't work. This is still an early prototype. But we'll continue to iterate on this. And what the installer in the next release will be able to do is to automatically report its results. So for a long time, the installer was able to automatically post logs on Ubuntu Pastebin and attach them to a generated bug report. But now it also automatically, if the user agrees to this, of course, reports are run to OpenCuts. So we also know what does work. Right now, this works by setting an environment variable. In future releases, it will actually ask you about it in detail. So it's like extra opt-in at the moment, but it will always be opt-in because obviously there's some privacy concerns if you would just phone home. So that wouldn't be okay. But this will be interesting. And if this is successful, if this works well for the UBports installer, we can also look into adding it for more systems that we use in UBports. So we can depict the entirety of Ubuntu Touch in there, and also, of course, different apps from the open store. Maybe also community apps if those developers are interested. We'll see about this. So it still needs some work, still needs some love. If you're interested in getting involved with this, there's a Telegram group for this already. It's at OpenCuts, just one word, on Telegram. I'm sorry, I'm tired. And there's also a forum category under other projects on the UBports forum.
Forums.ubiports.com.
Yes, exactly. So you can go over there. The whole thing is built in Node.js, so JavaScript. It provides a GraphQL API. If you're not familiar with GraphQL, it's kind of a query language for APIs, so we can describe what data you want. It's kind of nice. It's also maybe an interesting project to get acquainted with this. It uses a MongoDB database with the Mongoose client for JavaScript. So even if you're not familiar with JavaScript, but know a lot about Mongoose aggregation pipeline scripting, then I would be very interested in getting your help, because to generate these coverage results that you just saw, we need to do a lot of big database operations. So if there's people who know Mongoose or MongoDB actually very well, I'm interested to get some help there. The front end is written in Vue.js and Bootstrap. Also interested in getting some people onboarded there. I see people are already joining the group. That's really nice.
You didn't even need to post the link anywhere.
Yeah. And since the installer can report automatically, it would also be interesting in the future to get some kind of semi-automatic or automatic reporting in Ubuntu Touch done. So in the past, there have been some apps that they are really old, so I don't know how well they would still work, called Checkbox in Pilot at some point. So it would be interesting to investigate those and see what parts we can salvage, or if we can salvage the whole app. Or maybe we can also throw in and tag together something new in QML. So if there's QML developers interested in joining, also join the group at OpenCuts on Telegram. So you could do very simple things like just have an app that opens and you click on, okay, test the gyroscope. And then it checks, okay, can I get a gyroscope reading? And it tells you, okay, move the phone around a little. If the readings from the gyroscope change, then we know, okay, the gyroscope test was successful, and it can automatically read the version tag from the system if it's an unconfined app, attach a log, send it to OpenCuts, and we know what's going on. So we could do this for every Dev release. Would be very interesting, I think. Yes, this is me. Sorry for holding us up so long.
Yeah, that's a good 30 minutes. Yes, so if you're interested in working with OpenCuts with any of the MongoDB, JavaScript backend, GraphQL, and Apollo, you would head to @OpenCuts on Telegram, or t.me/OpenCuts, all one word, or OpenCuts category on forums.ubports.com. And if you're interested in any of those apps, well, @UBports on Telegram is a good place to start. I miss checkboxes. I remember it was like almost there. It was almost ready for release, and then it just gone.
Yeah, it had a lot of stuff. It's going to need some love to make it build
Absolutely.
again. So I just for the heck of it, I ran the build scripts on my computer, and it tried to pull in some utopic. So that's 1410, I think, PPAs. So it doesn't work at all right now, but maybe we can fix it.
All right. Well, in all of this testing and installing news, we also have news about porting, and specifically helping other people port. So, Alfred, could you talk a little bit about our update to our porting documentation this week?
Of course. So thanks to the community effort, or specifically thanks to Ari especially, we now have a revamped documentation about porting on our website. So again, thanks to Ari. And it's got a new structure. It's got a lot better explanation. It goes into not too much detail. It's not too technical, but it's still possible to follow it even though you're not a technical person. That's a very important point. At least that's my interpretation after having read this. And it also has some preparation for Halium 9.0. So we currently, or up until now, we had no indication of where to get information about Halium 9. That's going to be more easier because for the first step, we are linking to the wiki page now about GSI porting specifically. And in the future, we're going to integrate all those frequently asked questions that we have in our pad about porting. We're going to integrate that into the documentation because it's just not possible to keep it there anymore.
No.
No, absolutely not. People, it gets vandalized every now and then. So
I don't think it's actual vandalism. It's just Etherpad isn't meant for what you're trying to do with it.
Exactly.
No,
I looked.
Actually, today I got a report. It's again half in Chinese now because people use auto-translate on the whole text. They select the whole pad and translate it, and thereby saving
the worst
a new
part
version.
about that is Etherpad uses its database as a key value store. So it just has one really, really long table in MySQL with 2 columns, key and value. And so it's rebuilding that pad on the server every time you open it.
Well, let's just put it that way. To all the porters out there,
moving.
Exactly. To all the porters out there, don't be afraid. Things are going to move to a sane place now. And there's more to come, definitely. Let's see what the future brings. And next up is a little update on Halium 9.0. So I've been working on a little side project, which is very important for the initial installer bring up, and that is a recovery. We have a Halium 9.0 based recovery now. It's as you can see, it's currently using the Lineage OS not trademark, the branding. But we're going to switch that over hopefully very soon. If anybody is interested in making icons, images, etc. for it, maybe tweak the coloring scheme, for example, you're more than invited to join the effort.
Where can they find that?
It's on GitHub currently, github.com/UBports. There you can find it under Halium_bootable_recovery. So for the porters out there who want to test this out on their own devices, it's currently non-GSI only. So for the GSI effort, that would be another thing by itself, another task by itself. But it works on specific devices now. So that's one thing. And another thing for porters out there is the fact that it's now going to be a part of the standard Halium repository offering. So when you do your initial repository sync using the repo tool, you're going to get this automatically without having to pull in random sources from the internet, from people you might not know. It's from a trusted source now. And again, if anybody wants to help out, you can ping me on Telegram or make a PR on GitHub, and let's see what we can do. So the next thing about Halium porting is, and this is specific to devices like the Pixel 3a and Pixel 3a XL, or other devices which I'm not aware of right now, to be honest with you. There is now ongoing work, or it's partially done. It's almost done. It's work on C codec 2.0 enablement. So video playback on the Pixel 3a is now working, especially, or not only the Pixel 3a, but other devices that make use of the C codec 2.0 codec infrastructure. Let's just call it that. So the API has not changed, but the behavior has been tweaked a little by Google. So what Google did was they added a ranking system for codecs, which codec to prefer over others. And now this has been forced to make use of hardware accelerated decoders only. But if anybody encounters issues, just you can ping me, and maybe I can add an exception in the code for that. Or maybe you can even fix it yourself. I don't know, hopefully. And the only current issue right now is that thumbnail generation does not work. And that's very odd to me, honestly, because it's using the GStreamer stuff, but I'm sure we're going to get it fixed sooner rather than later. And as a combination of all those three things that I've mentioned now, this brings us very close to an initial release of Ubuntu Touch for the Pixel 3a. And that's it's still not perfectly done. There are still a few issues. GPS, for example, has a few hiccups here and there, or doesn't work at all, to be more specific. But
Hiccup.
it's not a hiccup. No, it's more than a hiccup. But it's. I'm hopeful that with more people joining the porting, because Halium and UBports porting Telegram channels are blowing up these days. There's a lot going on right now, and people are eager to get it to work on their devices. So hopefully that will make it also work with GPS, for example, and fix it for all the devices out there. And so the only thing that is missing currently for making this a possibility is the way that, as some of you might remember or not, Marius mentioned one of the last Q&As that the init RAMFS situation has changed in Android. So that, just as a recap, that causes, or just as a little explanation, that causes us to not have a recovery image by itself. So the recovery and the kernel image, the normal boot image, are actually one file. And that's causing a few issues with the installer process right now, which might mean that, oh, kitty cat, look at that. Which means that you might have to do some manual steps in between, but it's going to be still very easy to follow the installation process and get it to work on your devices. So if anybody out there with an Pixel 3a wants to test it out, you can test it out right now, but not in the installer. The installer is going to take maybe, hopefully, until the next Q&A. Let's see. I'm not going to promise anything right now.
You gonna eat a sock?
Let's make it a sock thing.
Let's not make it a sock thing.
I'm pretty sure it's going to work. Yeah, and also another thing that I forgot. If anybody out there with a Pixel 3a XL, with the bigger one, wants to help get Ubuntu Touch working on his or her device, make sure to ping me on Telegram or maybe send me a message on the forums, because the steps, I've made some preparations to make that very, very easy to get it to work on the XL version as well, because there's not a lot of difference between those two models. You can make use of this almost the same, or not almost, but completely the same kernel image and DTBO, or with the device tree image.
Wow.
So in case anybody with an XL version of the Pixel 3a wants to help out, you can ping me on Telegram or send me a message on the forums. So I would appreciate it, of course.
Wow, that's also a lot of things happening. That's just in the past couple of weeks.
Right.
Wow, yeah, it feels like it flew, but so much happened. Yeah, we're 35 minutes in, I think. Where's my timer? I don't have a timer. Oh.
41.
Yes.
No, because we didn't start right away.
Okay.
Wow.
True.
I'm gonna skip around the questions just so y'all know. All right, Jan. Wait, no. First, Alfred, where can you said that people can ping you? Who? Where? How?
If you want to get in contact with me, you can ping me at fredl.me. That's FREDLDOTME. Please don't spam my inbox. Please, I beg you. Don't
Please
ask me for
say
help.
why you're messaging him in the first message.
Exactly, yes. And please don't ask about help installing Ubuntu Touch. Yeah.
And please don't ask about Bitcoin.
Exactly.
I have an exciting investment opportunity for you.
Oh my God,
Oh
no.
my gosh, no way.
I had one of those. Please don't.
Oh, it happens all the time, don't worry.
Oh, yeah.
It's just Telegram now. It got popular. This is what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Jan, you have placed some breaking news in our document. What's up?
I just got word from Matteo Salter that he was already working on making checkbox work again. So this is the testing app I talked about before. So it builds with a new SUITK, mostly works. So that's probably going to be a little faster than I anticipated. So that's really cool. You just have to admire this community. If you ask a question here, it's immediately there. Really cool. So good work there, Matthew.
Wow. All right, cool. Well, we're getting a little late in the hour already, but why don't we take a break at this halfway point? And thank our sponsors. So, I gotta click the buttons. Thank you to our sponsors, including Smooze, Vala, Pine64, and Private Internet Access, for all making it possible for us to make Ubuntu Touch, for us to have this, this nonprofit foundation that makes sure that Ubuntu Touch is sustainable for the long term. You're all making it possible. And to all of our other sponsors over at ubports.com/sponsors if you want to see them. I'd also like to thank our community sponsors on Patreon, including Dan Trevino, Robin Hood, Kurt Vaughn, Laszlo Thomas, Darren Olson, James H. Jackson Jr., Max Fielder, A. Thiel, Michael Dale Meyer, Casey Lambie, George Toma, Renat Mirkalev, Will Atwood, and Scott Marley. Wow, that list is getting long. Thank you so much, everyone. If you'd like to join them and have me mispronounce your name as well, it's a very special experience, I swear. You can head over to patreon.com/UBports. Pick the community sponsor level. I think that we have a cap on how long that list can get, so we are getting to the limit. If you want to get in on that, now'd be the time to do it. But huge thank you to everyone who heads over there. Or you can head over to ubports.com/donate. We have options to make tax-deductible donations to the foundation, including via direct IBAN numbers. Consult with your tax authority, of course. Or direct donations via PayPal, LibrePay, or Bitcoin. I got all the options, right? All right. And again, a huge thank you to everyone who is doing that. Thank you to the companies who are helping us make this all possible. It's difficult to say this without sounding hollow, but it's like, I'm so excited that all these people are helping us. All right, I can close these down now. We're gonna skip through the questions this week. Ari says this Q&A sure is information intensive. It sure is. Let us know what you think about these like more technical style Q&As. I kind of like going for these more technical ones sometimes. I think that we strike a pretty good balance. What do you think? So much stuff. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Thank you, Press F. Thank you. So, let's start with a few questions. We're getting kind of late in the hour again, but let's take a few. Mateo starts us off this week asking, Hacktoberfest? So, yes, Hacktoberfest is now an opt-in only thing because of some issues that they had this year, which is unfortunate, but I suppose it was bound to happen someday. In the past, we've had some really great participation from Hacktoberfest, but it takes a lot of our time to make it happen. With Hacktoberfest, what I like to do is I like to take our good first issues and mark them with Hacktoberfest, which presents them to people on the Hacktoberfest website and helps them find all of the tickets. But when I create good first issue issues, I prefer to make them so that they are designed to help people get into the workflow of contributing to Ubuntu Touch. If it's an app, they get into how to use Clickable Desktop and how to use Clickable to install on their device and how to debug the issues. or if it's system software, how they can use CrossBuilder or our CI system to create their changes. I haven't exactly had the time to make any of those tickets and instructions happen this month, unfortunately. But I don't think I will have time to do that either. This is one of those cases where it really needs one of us, someone who's really into the deep levels of Ubuntu Touch to be the mentor for this time. And this is kind of a too busy sawing to sharpen the saw situation. Again, we've had really good participation from Hacktoberfest in the past. We don't exactly have all the time we would like to make it happen this year. But if you are participating in Hacktoberfest and you're watching this, just let us know when you submit your PR. We can add the Hacktoberfest accepted label to your PR so that it counts. So do let us know. We do want to do that for you. So if you're submitting a PR to Ubuntu Touch in the month of October on any of the GitHub repos that we have at github.com/UBports, let us know if you want that Hacktoberfest tag. We can totally provide that for you. We just don't exactly have the time to make it the big thing that we would like to make it in previous years at the moment. Jan, can you take the next one? Or at least read the next one?
Sure. This would be from Ori88 on the forums. In one of the last Q&As, Dalton told us that a lot of resources had to be devoted solely to evaluating commit from the community. I find this great, although I guess Dalton is not as fun as to directly develop himself. Do you think that was just a particularly intense period of PR in review? What?
In view of the upcoming OTA.
Okay. Yes. Do you think this was just a particularly intense period of PR in view of the upcoming OTA? Oh my God. I'm very sorry about this. Or is that situation persisting?
Can we cut this out?
So I ran the numbers on this actually. I looked at every month since we grabbed the project in 2017 of PRs, and I found that no, this is a persistent problem. PR numbers are about average and growing, but it's not like a huge surge has been happening lately, unfortunately. Our huge surge is actually in February with double the pull requests we normally have. Some of those are still open, though, so you could say yes. In general, no, this isn't a huge surge. It's just we have a huge surge in other things to work on right now that we're also working on, which is taken away from our time to review PRs. And of course, I did count translations and everything in my counts. I just said all of the PRs opened this month, all the way back to January 1st, 2017. So it doesn't count like how big the PRs were or anything like that, because we're also getting some things that are bigger and harder to review right now. So the base numbers don't mean much, but no, this isn't a huge surge in contribution. It's more of an organic growth that's been happening for a while, and we've just had other things going on that makes it more difficult to review them right now. Additionally, I don't mind reviewing PRs. I do like developing directly myself, but I also like reviewing PRs. It means that I don't have to do all the work. But this week, actually, Rodney has been reviewing a lot of the PRs. I think he did 50 in a week, closed or merged. So that's pretty awesome. Thank you, Rodney, for working on that this week. Ari had another question about how do we prioritize different devices, I think, that I didn't exactly understand, so I did remove it here. If you'd like to ask that again next time, that's all right. I just didn't really understand it this time. I apologize, Ari. And then he asked a final question. Plasma Mobile has recently announced an animated background for their weather app. Will we ever have such a feature? Does Lemiri not allow that? Yeah, the weather app can totally have an animated background. That's totally on the app side. Lemiri doesn't care what's in the background of an app. So, Yeah, we could have that if someone, wanted to implement that and did so. You could have a animated background on the weather app like K-Weather has. Alfred, can you read the next?
All right. Ubuntu 2 asks, would it be possible to boot the PinePhone from external flash memory connected to the USB-C port? This would avoid having to remove the back cover when swapping SD cards.
Yeah. So technically, yes, the PinePhone can be booted from USB storage. The problem is that every PinePhone distribution has to agree that the PinePhone can be booted from USB storage. So if you think about how like your PC works, you have your BIOS or EFI firmware that goes, it's on a flash chip on your motherboard, and the CPU starts executing straight from there. So like it runs all the code on that flash chip up until it says, okay, I want to boot this EFI binary, or I want to boot this BIOS payload, all the way back to the IBM days. That's not a luxury that we have on the PinePhone. We don't have a firmware that's doing the booting of different operating systems for us or handling USB devices or anything like that. On the PinePhone, we use the U-Boot bootloader, which honestly is quickly becoming its own operating system that runs before your operating system runs, but we won't talk about that. That has to bring up all of the devices it needs before it can actually boot the payload, be it Linux, in most cases on the PinePhone or whatever else it is. Some devices have solved this by having U-Boot flash to flash storage on themselves, but that doesn't exist on the PinePhone. So every distribution shipping a image for the PinePhone would need to agree that the PinePhone can boot from USB storage. And we'd need to agree on a standard way to do it. And you would still need to have an SD card or this bootloader flashed on your eMMC at all times. So while it's possible, it's not exactly practical. And I find it unlikely that everyone would be able to agree on this, especially since there are several competing bootloader options on the PinePhone. It's just a really complicated situation, unfortunately. It's less... Yeah. Probably not something that we're going to see quite so soon. And next up, Rick had a question on our forum this week. Well, a bit of a paragraph. And let's begin. Is there any consideration in having a separate build that does not have a read-only file system, like more of a standard Ubuntu install? If there were something like that, I would think it could stand as the main development branch that would allow faster upgrades to 2004, Wayland, System D, and etc. That could be a testing ground that new releases of stable or consumer operating system actually come from, the read-only version. It would also not frustrate any potential developers who would want standard Linux on a phone, like Mobian, Manjaro, and Fedora provide. In summary, I understand a lot of the reasons behind the read-only system for stability, security, end users, and etc., but I fear that it keeps away a possible developer interest that would benefit Ubuntu Touch in the long run if it were more traditional Ubuntu. People could be trying all sorts of things like Flatpak, snaps, different apps, and etc. I know there's Libertine, but there's some performance issues and it isn't available everywhere. So take the chains off and see what happens. I suspect a large group of the community. Okay. So yeah, we hear things like this a lot. Why don't you have a more traditional Linux system? Why isn't Ubuntu Touch more traditional? Why isn't it, to use the term people often use, a real Linux distribution? First, making two operating systems as you propose here is untenable in basically every way. We can't have this separate build of our read-only regular Ubuntu Touch that, installs click packages and has all these things and has system image upgrades, and also in parallel have an apt version that has all of the update infrastructure for apt and does everything that way. Because it's not just about, it's not a simple swap. System image has its own infrastructure for keeping the device awake while it's downloading updates and failing gracefully when it isn't able to do that. Apt, on the other hand, you might start an apt update and you need to keep the device awake for 40 minutes. Your pocket's going to be really hot after that one. But also, if your device reboots during that, it's going to completely hose your system. You can't boot. You can't call emergency services. That's not something we want to do. But maintaining the infrastructure to keep both of those working isn't maintaining a single operating system. It's maintaining two different operating systems. And that is really untenable for us, to be able to do two different things at once like that. It also wouldn't help us get to anything faster, because we're maintaining two separate operating systems now, and we need to fix the bugs that happen on the apt version, and we need to fix the different bugs that happen on the system image version. It's just... And I also have a problem with the assumption that if we make another Ubuntu or another Debian, which is more similar to what people who say they want a real Linux distribution want, that we would have as much success as the real Ubuntu. Or in other words, we want the developers who would want to make another Ubuntu or another Debian. Now, what I mean by that is, generally when people say, why aren't you making a real Linux distribution? That's the spicy take. More like, why can't I install, why aren't you making something more like traditional Ubuntu? It's because they want something similar to standard Ubuntu, or more likely Debian. Maybe they don't like snap packages, so they'd rather have Debian. In most cases, I see it as they don't want snap packages either, so they want us to just make Debian. The idea being that if we make Ubuntu, or we make Debian, but with Lomiri, and, well, that's basically it, that somehow we would get more developers. The problem with that is that Debian is also hurting for contributors right now. So we wouldn't get more developers purely by making another Debian that they might want to develop on. We can't make a better Debian, most likely. Not for the people who would want to develop Debian. Because Debian, Ubuntu, well, right now, Ubuntu and Fedora, you can get them on Lenovo, HP, and Dell laptops. Like over 50% of the laptop market share owning companies. That was quite a sentence. Dell, HP, and Lenovo make up more than 50% of the laptop market together, and you can buy their devices with Ubuntu or Fedora right now. But they sell them specifically to developers, and makers, the people who traditionally would like a traditional Linux system. How are we supposed to compete with that, Ubuntu and Fedora are much larger projects than us in that space, so trying to be them isn't going to bring us any success. Well, it might bring us small success, but not nearly as much as it brings them. It'd just be more fragmentation for the sake of it. We'd just be making something for the sake of change, not something genuinely different. And we're trying to make something that's genuinely different here. We're trying to make a system that is more like contemporary operating systems today than it was when it launched. Ubuntu Touch's design is more similar to Android, iOS, and Chrome OS than it is to Windows and Mac OS, which is what some of the more traditional Linux systems are meant to be based on. And the systems that are seeing success today aren't necessarily Windows and Mac OS, at least not as they used to be. Mac OS is redesigning itself to be more like iOS. Android has completely taken off with the computing market across the world. And iOS is number one in the US. The times, they are a-changin'. And Ubuntu Touch is more similar to contemporary operating systems today. And I don't really think that we want to throw that away just for being more like the traditional systems that are also seeing success today. They can have their success, and I'm sure they will for a long time. I mean, Ubuntu's available on ThinkPads. You can buy a ThinkPad with Ubuntu today, and that's awesome. But it seems unlikely to me that we would be able to get to that same point by following the same path. We'll need to follow our own different path of making something that isn't, a real Linux distribution, of making something that's more similar to contemporary operating systems. Something that, doesn't necessarily implicitly trust every developer who makes software for it. Something that allows users to have more control over their data so that you can't just npm I a package that you want to develop with and it steals your SSH keys. Yes, that really has happened.
May I make a little? May I make a point? The point that making for example, the system or the rootfs read write by default would bring in more developers' interest. I'm not sure if that's necessarily true, because most developers who are developing on the operating system itself already do make their devices read write sometimes when they, for example, test a package or when they develop on something. I, for example, myself have to make my device read write when doing the NFC enablement, for example.
And CrossBuilder does it too. Like, we have tools that make your system read write so you can install packages on them.
Exactly.
But not for all of your software.
Exactly. There's a difference though between developers and enthusiasts who want to make, for example, Apache work on their phone, which there's a difference. There's a big difference between those two groups, and I'm not really sure if we're, targeting the latter group. We're certainly interested in getting more developers on board, but on the other hand, I myself, after I'm done doing the NFC enablement, I sure as hell I'm going to make my phone read only again, because I have no need to change anything on the system anymore. It's implemented, it's done, and I can focus on the next thing. It's not like I have to keep it read write just for the sake of having it read write.
Sure. Right. So providing the thing that enthusiasts who want a real Linux distribution on their phone want, providing that kind of system isn't really what we're trying to do. And there are other options for that. There's not necessarily post-market OS, but more like Mobian, Fedora, they can all provide for that kind of thing. Whereas that's more difficult for us, specifically because of the design of our system and the goals that we want to meet.
Maybe also something about the target audience of devices, and also together with the history and the legacy of Canonical and the Android phones. It's a different perspective now if you put an SD card into a Pine phone and you boot it off like a normal Linux, or you have to deal with the containerization that we have with our Android phones, where we need to enable the hardware with that. And in the end, it's all about, it was designed for, let's say, end users and mass market. And if we are going a route where the system is very open for developers, we might even distract ordinary users, because the system feels like it's how to say, it can do everything. It has all the options enabled, but in the same time you get lost with that, because you might install something like I did on many occasions that required additional dependencies, and suddenly 400 packages are getting updated, and then suddenly the dialer won't work or something else goes wrong. People should not be necessarily expecting to need to fix the phone now and then because it got broken. It's for enthusiasts, it's for developers. It's okay when they somehow modify their system and try to tweak it, and sometimes they will break it. Yeah, and we also do this in our work. Yeah,
we break it.
We break it. We break it on a regular basis. It's actually on the menu every day. But then on the other hand, you have a rock solid thing that you can reset in a matter of minutes, and you're back to your square one where you started in the morning, there is no trace left because everything will just get removed by replacing the image with a stable one. Your data is still there, on the other hand, because the data is, kind of injected into the root image in a very clever way. So this is rock solid thing that can be used by people like your grandmother. And this is no joke. There are grandmothers using Ubuntu Touch on the planet. So there must be trade-offs that are on all the consumer devices. Yep. And that's also a success factor of Android and iPhone. It's actually limiting what you can do with it for the sake of making it rock solid and making it a daily driver that is really your companion and won't break that easy. So I think, should we limit ourselves by telling people, well, you know, everything is open. You can modify everything. Everybody can steal off your phone because it just needs to reboot it or take out the SD card. But it's okay because it's open for developers. That's not a selling proposition that we want. We want to give it to people that have no idea what's going on behind the scenes and say, look, that's your replacement for your Android phone and it's good. Yeah? Okay, maybe not this year, but maybe in a few years. We cannot make a point with millions and millions and billions of other phones if we just limit ourselves to a developer community. That's not why I'm here. Yeah? And I think that's wrapping up the thing. Yeah. In the end, it's about which audience you're targeting.
Yeah.
It's all about going back to the saying or the initial slogan for Ubuntu, Linux for human beings. And we really want to make it for normal, mere mortal people, make it work for those instead of the, hardcore enthusiasts like we ourselves are.
Yep.
But
and we definitely make trade-offs there.
Exactly.
But we think they're worth it. So yeah, for all those reasons, we probably won't have this playground type of operating system that you're looking for. There are other options. Martine said in chat, by the way, you can APK add Apache to run Apache on your phone. So I don't think that's really what Postmarket is like strictly for. I don't know. That's your call, Martine. But that's our spiel on why we're making Ubuntu Touch the way that we are. It doesn't mean that anyone else has to make their operating system the way they are. And it doesn't mean that people need to use it that way. You're free to use Ubuntu Touch however you want. If it goes against the grain, though, it's just going to be more difficult. Maybe there are other options that are easier for what you want. And it might be worth looking into those. If that is really what you want, it's probably worth looking into other options if we can't provide what you want. Boy, that sounds too much like go away. That's not what I mean, but there's other people doing this too, and if they do what you want, they deserve your time as well. Okay. And on that bombshell, should we get out of here? All right. Apologies, there were more questions that we didn't quite get through this week. Yeah, Martine, that's right. If every distro did the exact same thing the exact same way, we wouldn't need more distros. That is so right. If we were doing Ubuntu, we wouldn't need to be here.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to cap it off. No.
And it's not a waste of effort because we can reuse the work of others. Others can reuse our work. Mm-hmm. It's not a waste of effort.
All right. I'm going to end it.
It's open source.
Which means that I need to find this list of things. Why don't we put this in the document?
I don't know.
Why don't I put this in the document? Why do I have to browse YouTube every time?
If only you were allowed to edit the document.
Only everyone could edit the document. Oh, man. Thank you everyone so much for watching this episode of the Ubuntu Touch Q&A. The fun doesn't end here. You can find us if you want to talk about our spicy takes on the Linux community over on Facebook, Twitter, PixelFed, Mastodon, LinkedIn, Instagram, or if you want our news directly in your chat client, you can find it over on Telegram or Matrix. Links to all of those things are down in the video description below. You can also chat with us. We'd love to hear from you, especially on this episode. So you can head over to Matrix or Telegram at UBports, #UBports, reverse respectively, or our forum over at forums.ubports.com. We love hearing from people and knowing what you think. Yeah, I think that's about it for this week. If you want to check out Ubuntu Touch on your device, head over to devices.ubuntu-touch.io to see all of the devices that it runs on. Install on yours with the brand new, so much better than ever UBports installer. Maybe submit a bug report to OpenCuts while you're at it. We'll head out of here. Thank you everyone for watching, and we will see you in the next one. I'm sure there'll be lots of feedback. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.